Okay, the Anthropic situation, it just got absolutely insane. I mean, we are literally watching one of the strangest, most unpredictable chapters in recent tech history unfold right now. Think about it. The company that built its entire identity on being the quiet, cautious, safety-first alternative to OpenAI is suddenly right in the middle of the most explosive, tangled, and honestly paradoxical alliances we've ever seen. So in today's Explainer, we're going to unpack exactly how a lab founded on extreme caution is essentially being forced into a trillion-dollar infrastructure war just to stay alive. Let's get right into it.
So check out this bizarre reversal. For months, Elon Musk aggressively mocked Claude. He was constantly criticizing Anthropic's culture, calling them hypocrites, and of course, he runs XAI, which is their direct competitor. But then, he sits down with their senior leadership, and suddenly, he totally softens his tone. He comes out saying they're highly competent and that, quote, no one triggered my evil detector. It's incredibly ironic, but, words are cheap in Silicon Valley. What isn't cheap, though, is what he handed them next.
And this is the central mystery of this whole story. Why on earth would Elon Musk hand his biggest AI rival the keys to one of the most powerful supercomputers on the planet? Well, the answer tells you everything you need to know about the current AI war. Old insults, clean traditional rivalries, they just do not matter anymore. The only currency that actually matters right now is available GPUs. And the incentives here just lined up perfectly. Elon wants OpenAI knocked down a peg, and Anthropic desperately needed to close a massive infrastructure gap. Section 1. Breaking the compute bottleneck. To really grasp the gravity of this deal, you have to look at what was happening on the ground for Anthropic's users. They weren't some failing startup that needed saving. Actually, it was the exact opposite. They were wildly popular. Claude Code was literally white hot. But users were getting so frustrated. People were paying for Pro or Max tiers and just constantly hitting these really strict 5-hour limits, getting throttled during peak hours. It was a huge bottleneck. And then the SpaceX deal lands. Instantly, rate limits double. Those annoying peak hour throttles, gone. API limits jump from a few 100,000 tokens to literally millions. You could feel the impact overnight. So the really crucial takeaway here is that Claude's biggest problem was never the model itself. The model is amazing. The problem was severe, restrictive compute capacity limits. Every single time a developer ran a complex coding session, every time a massive enterprise deployment went live, it was just draining their infrastructure dry. They had this astronomical demand, but they simply didn't have the iron to back it up. So they were forced into this high-stakes hyperscaling, which completely shatters the illusion that AI is just a software game. It is a heavy industry now. Which brings us to Section 2, the trillion-dollar tangled web. So underneath Claude's super clean minimalist chat window, this staggering industrial machine is waking up. 220,000. That is the sheer number of Nvidia GPUs Anthropic is tapping into right now through SpaceX's Colossus One data center. We're talking over 300 megawatts of compute capacity coming online almost immediately, not years down the road, like right now. And by unlocking that kind of ridiculous compute, Anthropic is stepping squarely into OpenAI's weight class, like right into the heavyweight ring. According to recent reports, they are looking to raise up to $50 billion this summer, aiming for a rumored pre-money valuation of $900 billion. If they pull that off, it pushes them right past OpenAI's reported $852 billion valuation. They would literally become the most valuable AI startup on Earth, especially with their annualized revenue reportedly surging toward $45 billion, driven by all this heavy enterprise use. But here's the crazy part. That massive SpaceX deal, it's just one tiny piece of the puzzle. Just listen to this absolute shopping list of power and money. They've got an agreement for up to 5 gigawatts of power with Amazon, another 5 gigawatts lined up with Google and Broadcom, a staggering $200 billion commitment over 5 years with Google Cloud, $30 billion in Azure capacity through Microsoft and Nvidia. They even pulled in $25 million from Kazakhstan's sovereign wealth fund. Because yeah, AI companies aren't just software startups anymore. They're basically strategic national assets. Okay, we really have to pause and untangle this absolute mess for a second because it brilliantly illustrates just how wild the AI industry has become. The contradictions are hilarious. Think about it. Anthropic is in a brutal deathmatch with Google Gemini, but they desperately depend on Google Cloud and TPUs to function. They are trying to beat OpenAI and Microsoft while literally buying up Microsoft Azure capacity. And of course, they battle Elon's XAI while simultaneously running their models on Elon's SpaceX compute. I mean, you literally have to sleep with the enemy if the enemy happens to own the data centers. All right, Section 3, clashing with the Pentagon. As you scale up to become the operating system of the global economy, you're inevitably going to collide with national security. It's just unavoidable. Recently, the Pentagon signed these massive AI agreements with 8 major tech giants: OpenAI, Google, SpaceX, the usual suspects. But Anthropic? Noticeably absent. According to reports, during the Trump administration, Anthropic actually pushed back on terms that would have allowed Claude to be used for autonomous weapons and mass surveillance. Because of that safety stance, they were labeled a supply chain risk and blacklisted. Now, Anthropic sued, and a federal judge actually put a temporary block on that government effort. But it highlights a classic Anthropic conflict. They absolutely want government relevance, but they are hitting a massive wall trying to enforce their safety guardrails against military demands.
Section 4. The danger of Mythos. Now we have to talk about a terrifying double-edged sword sitting right inside Anthropic's own labs. A model so insanely capable they refuse to release it to the public. It's called Mythos. This is an AI built specifically to analyze and hunt down software vulnerabilities at a superhuman scale. Now, if you're a defender, this is a miracle, right? Companies can find and patch 0 days faster than ever. But the flip side is obvious. If a model can find these flaws instantly, elite hackers and criminal syndicates could use that exact same capability to generate complex exploit strategies at speeds that human security teams simply cannot defend against.
Just to put a real number on how crazy this thing is, 271. That's the number of deep, complex vulnerabilities that Mozilla reportedly found and fixed in Firefox using just a preview version of the Mythos model. It is shockingly effective. And honestly, that sparks a much larger, kind of terrifying thought. If an AI system can completely master finding the tiny, exploitable cracks in millions of lines of software code, what happens when you point that exact same capability at the US tax code, or global financial regulations, or massive legal frameworks? Any system on Earth that relies on rules, exceptions, and loopholes is totally vulnerable to this kind of superhuman analysis. We aren't just talking about a chatbot writing bad poetry anymore. We're talking about AI instantly mapping out the weaknesses in the actual systems that hold society together. Section 5. Can safety survive massive scale? So we're basically watching Anthropic's core identity crisis unfold in real time. Remember, they started with this deeply held philosophy of constitutional AI. Everything had to be controlled, heavily aligned, incredibly careful. Fast forward to today, and they're literally negotiating multi-gigawatt orbital AI compute capacity with SpaceX. Orbital compute, it sounds like pure science fiction, but it proves just how insane this hypergrowth has become. This cautious, safety-first lab is actively mutating into the central operating system for the entire AI economy. And to do it, they are becoming heavily dependent on massive tech giants and mind-bending physical infrastructure. Which leaves us with this final, genuinely provocative question. Can you actually balance a ruthless trillion-dollar infrastructure war with the cautious, slow-moving principles of AI safety, as Anthropic continues to scale at this blistering pace, as their compute demands absolutely explode, and as they get more and more tangled up with fierce rivals and strict military demands? What happens to the caution? Because right now, they aren't just the careful, quiet alternative anymore. They have officially become the main character in the AI infrastructure war. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I'll catch you in the next one.